I've got Pablo with me today, and Pablo's a D2C and ecom guy, but he's building some pretty insane stuff with AI recently. So just last week, I saw your tweet about recreating a $6 million ARR AI ads maker tool with an N8N automation. So of course I was like, hey dude, can you come show me this? And so that's why we're here today. I'm pumped to learn from you. So Pablo, if someone watches to the end of this video today, what can they expect to learn from you?
Of course, as Nick mentioned, like we're building a DTC brand and we've actively gone into looking at how you can scale these brands with AI. So hopefully if you watch to the end, ideally you would have some ideas, not just in DTC, with your business in general, what sort of systems we're looking at building, what sort of AIs we're implementing, like how we sort of plan to like build a brand or sort of build any business with like very lean teams and operations.
I guess to kick things off, the automation that I saw you building is on N8N and it's replacing tools like Icon or potentially Arc ads. Can you give me a background on what these tools do and how D2C operators are using them?
Correct. Yeah. So we built that flow out on N8N. And to be like totally honest, I'm still quite new to N8N, but I've been playing around with it a lot recently. I tested out like a few other tools. There's some Get Lindy AI, which I used before. But I think when it comes to just getting started and building stuff, N8N worked pretty well, especially for us with D2C because they have so many integrations. So there's a ton of softwares that are like piggybacking on OpenAI. And a lot of them are like tools just for D2C and they sort of focus in one specific area. As you mentioned, Arcads, which is really good for AI UGC. They're actually really good. Like I actually did some SEO for them before and I've spoken with the founder and he's a killer. So their stuff is really good. But in terms of, if you get access to their APIs, also Icon, I'd say the product's not as good. They like very generalized. So when it comes to tools like Icon, which is doing a lot of things, like they have the AI UGC, they have AI ads, they have the Facebook connections. Those are things where you can definitely get better output than they're making just by going into N8N and like building your own workflows and using sort of your own data to actually train the models, which I think is probably what there's so many apps coming out, but I don't think many of them are actually giving it good training data to be able to get the output that actually works.
Yeah. So like N8N is just the automation platform, right? So we're not actually,
Exactly.
it's not actually like it's doing the work, but it's pulling in APIs, basically data from other sources to put that all together. So it's basically like replacing what a human would do rather than sitting there and doing it all manually yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So it's like any task you do that sort of starts online and ends online and ideally is fairly repetitive can be automated.
Yeah, totally. And I know you're using this for D2C and e-commerce and things like that, but I think this can also be used in like software applications. Like you could build this into any business, basically creating these ads, right? So I don't want people to hear this and be like, but this is just for like D2C. Like this is for any business that runs ads, which is
Any
like
business, yeah.
all businesses, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, D2C is like primarily like infamous for ads because sort of the whole business model starts with testing products, running ads for it. Like not many DTC businesses will you find where the founder started by like posting viral tweets or doing just SEO for it. Whereas that's like a lot more common with software. And so I think there are like killers with advertising within the software space, running ads for software. Although a lot of people rely more on like the going organic route or using Twitter or doing SEO. But I think advertising in software is still like hugely underrated. Even if you're not like as good at advertising as maybe, you haven't done it before. You've seen like ecom guys do it, but you don't think, as you said, you don't think it's applicable to software. This is like a really good way where you can actually break those steps down and start creating really good ads or finding other ways where you're going to advertise your software and sort of create automations for that flow. So you don't have to like take as long to be able to get those sort of steps out. And especially in the beginning, if you're not as good, it's definitely more of a volume game than a quality game. So this way, it allows you to make a lot more volume than you would before.
Yeah. We've seen this in iOS apps are making a comeback because they're using the D2C model of going to TikTok, using a bunch of UGC and using a bunch of ads. And they realize like the economics of some of these iOS apps are better because there's no direct fulfillment cost, right? Like once they have it built, then they pay a portion of revenue to Apple, but then it's just all advertising costs because it's software margin. So yeah, but scaling that is pretty difficult, right? If you're a single founder and you have an iOS app, it's great. Go out and find a bunch of UGC creators, go out and make a bunch of ads. That's easier said than done. So I think building these automations can basically make like a team of one pretty powerful. And that's what everyone talks about with a team of one being able to get to $1 billion business. It's through automations and AI and stuff like this.
Yeah. I think that's like the sort of hype right now, especially with N8N, it's made that idea of like the team of one scaling to like a 9-figure, even like a unicorn business with just one person. That was sort of the big thing with like software guys. But now it's become like a lot more accessible, even for a brand, where you can go and run a brand, which was before brands had like big teams. And I would say, especially guys in DTC, they're not as technical as software guys. Like all the sort of resources you have are plug and play. But now you have these automations that, you can apply, whether you're doing software, apps, DTC, your whole team can literally just be you, maybe like a VA for a few other tasks, but everything else can be done with just like automations ready.
Yeah. Yeah. What a world we live in. It's crazy, right? Like D2C,
It's crazy.
D2C was extremely difficult because to scale a lot of the time you have to scale. And I'm not a D2C guy, but like my understanding of it is like you have to hire marketing people and ops people, and like the margins are already not the best. But if you don't have a full team, then like that margin goes all to the owner rather than hiring a full staff.
I had like some friends of mine that they built out their business and it scaled super quickly, and they spend so much time hiring customer support because you really want like good customer support, especially with shipping. You don't want chargebacks. And so it's really important. Like there's always delays, there's always issues that can happen. And if you're starting to pump big volume, if there's like Black Friday coming up, sales coming up, they can get delayed, orders cannot arrive, there can be issues with orders. And you want to make sure that process is very seamless for the customer to know where their order is, that when they can expect it, what's happening if there's a delay. Otherwise they hit chargeback, which is pretty much one of the worst things that can happen. And so before you needed like teams of VAs, and you can't just have anyone, because if the person's spelling's bad or it's grammatically incorrect, you can't just put anyone in charge. They need some sort of like proficiency in English, obviously if you're selling in the English market, or to be skilled, like to be able to actually communicate with the customer. And so they were scaling this like customer support team up. They were growing. And eventually, as you said, the margins in D2C aren't amazing. And after the holidays, it went down a bit, but they had this huge customer support team. And it was just like taking so much cash from them. Whereas one of the first things, and I think like probably the easiest one you can go and implement with AI, is customer support. Literally just if you're on Shopify, you can do an API request in N8N for Shopify. So all of those things are sort of pre-built flows you can do there, where you can answer emails, you can find customer orders, you can tell them exactly where their order is. You can make sure that they're like updated with all the tracking information as their order goes. And that way they're going to be a lot happier. Even if there is like a delay in their order, at least they know where it is, which is the biggest issue when it comes to, people charging back because they haven't received their order. And you can do a similar thing for SaaS with on sites pop-ups. You can have customer support there. If people have questions, you can easily answer those questions. For more complicated things, we've got like a little flow where that stuff gets sent to our VA. So if someone wants to come in and do a collaboration, or if there's like an order, maybe for whatever reason, orders just disappeared, and then the AI can't solve that, then we weigh up those queries and then it gets sent to our VA. But either way, we have one VA who's working like 1 or 2 hours a day, as opposed to a team of like 20 customer support reps. So it saves so much time, so much money. Customers are happier, and we've been able to handle all those queries without actually worrying about hiring the right people.
Yeah. It's so insane. And I don't think we'll ever get to a world where it's like, hey, like we don't need any humans at all. But it's like, yeah, it turns out one VA or one customer service rep into a team of 20 that it would have taken before.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. All right. Well, sweet. So should we jump into the tool and walk through the automation that you have built here?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, I'm pulling up the flow. So yeah, this is pretty much it. The one that was shared on Twitter. It's a little bit different. I actually made an update to it last night, where simply all I did was I created this little merge and an aggregate tool. And by the way, like to build out these flows, if you're new to N8N, I also had zero clue what I was doing. So like, I didn't even know what this merge node was. I didn't know what this aggregate one does. But between YouTube and this little like ask assistant in the bottom, it's actually really good. If you have an idea of how your flow is structured and like exactly what you want to do, or even break down specific queries. For example, I had an issue with my like 2 different outputs being sent to this node. We can break down and explain. Mm-hmm. But basically, it was almost like breaking it up in 2 different things happening at the same time, as opposed to merging it together to create one output. And so I just explained that problem in this little Ask Assistant, and it can tell you exactly what you need to do. Like it shows you where to add the merge, where to add the aggregate. So this tool was super useful to be able to like learn and start building out these flows quickly.
Yeah, that's super cool. It's like using Replit or Cursor right now, right? It's like, hey, this specific thing isn't working. Like, please help me with it. And so when you pull up the screen and I see this, immediately I'm like, oh man, like that looks like a lot of work. That looks complicated. Looks a little bit scary. But I think we can walk through it, and it's probably not as scary as it looks.
Yeah.
I think it'd be helpful if we started from like the beginning and just show like, maybe actually even before we do that, maybe you start with like how you think about building an automation, right? Because you can almost whiteboard it out. I want to go from point A to point B and get this output.
Yeah, for sure. To be honest, like I was in that exact situation where I had heard about N8N and a friend of mine was like starting to use and starting to play around with it. And he said, bro, definitely check out N8N. It's the best one I've used to build out automations. And I logged in, I like pressed a few buttons. I had no idea what was happening. I'd never used Zapier or any of those before. So I'm not an automations guy at all either. And so I just logged off of it and I was like, okay, you know what? Like I can hire someone to do this, which is essentially what we did for our first agent. Like I just hired someone to do it. And after he built that agent, I was like, this is really cool. You know, let me actually give it another try. And I logged into it. And the best way was just starting with something really simple. And that way, like, you know, starting with something super simple, watching a few YouTube videos and literally even just like copying, pasting a flow you see on YouTube, it can help you actually learn the fundamentals. I mean, this flow did take me quite a while to do because it was the very first one I did. Not that it's necessarily complicated. As you mentioned, it's actually a bit easier than it looks. But once I did one flow, I sort of understood how to go about looking at these things a lot more than I did before.
Okay. And so like for this particular one, you clearly had an idea of, okay, I want to make AI ads. I want to be able to drop something in and it's going to spit out something that I can actually use here. So is that like,
Exactly.
is that the framework that you walked in? This is exactly what I want. I want to be able to go to a Google Drive, drop in an image, and then in 5 minutes, it's going to drop me out that image doing X, Y, Z. How do you think about that?
So yeah, I mean, my idea was, I was like, okay, like I spend a lot of time generating AI ads on ChatGPT. One of the biggest pain points is that I get super distracted very easily. So when I'm waiting for an image to generate, I pull up my phone or I go make a coffee, and next thing it's taken 20 minutes to generate one image because I was distracted. So I was thinking if I could just do all of those like 10 images, 20 images, however many it is in one go, that would be pretty useful for me. But I wasn't sure how to go about that. And I saw a video of someone generating a product image. And I sort of saw like, oh, they put the image in Google Drive. They use this AI prompt in the middle. And then they have this little like output section at the end and an HTTP request to actually access like the image generation model. So once I sort of saw those things, I was able to say, okay, like if I sit down and play around with N8N a bit, I can probably figure out how to do, like how to sort of take that same principle, but change it up a bit instead of making just one product image to generate multiple ads. So I had the idea before, and then I saw a similar workflow, and that allowed me to realize, oh, like I could probably do this a bit easier than I was thinking before.
That makes sense. And so could you walk me through how this works? So it looks like you have a trigger at the beginning there that says,
yeah,
you click it and that makes the workflow go. Is that right?
Exactly. So this is just like a click trigger. One thing I wanted to test was actually like an insert trigger. To keep it simple, we just started off with the test trigger, and that already works out pretty well. So like essentially when you just click test workflow, or you can go and run it manually, and then it goes ahead and it generates all the AI ads you want based off a reference.
Okay, sweet. And then the next step here is we have Google Drive, and it looks like we have 2 sets of Google Drives, and then it goes to another Google Drive.
Yeah. So the first Google Drive is we created a file within your Google Drive. And what this one does is it's simply, if we test this step, it actually looks for all the files within that drive. So like it just goes into this one, and here it's like pulled all the files. So I don't know if we can actually see the files it's pulled, but it's managed to get all the data on them. And so this one and this one are simply the exact same. It's just 2 different Google Drives. So in this Google Drive, it's reference ads. So I call it the ad inspiration file. A bunch of ads I've seen and I like, I just put it into this Google Drive, and it uses them as inspiration for the ads I want to create. And this Google Drive, which, you know, does the exact same functionality. Like if we test this, it pulls product photos. So these are the product photos for the product I want to create my ads around. If you were doing a software, like just to caveat that, whereas this is like a physical product, I would probably put like a description, or if there is any visual elements, like visual images you have, you could put them in here. Otherwise, I would probably make like a file, and you have a Google Drive file node. And I'll just replace this with a file of like a written brief of very like detailed what exactly your software is and does.
Or different angles, or like different features that you want to like feature in different ads. Or
exactly.
Or screenshots. If you think about Cal AI, like their screenshot could be like someone actually taking a picture of their food. So Yeah, there's a
Yeah, for
lot of
sure.
different ways you could go about that for software, I think.
If your software is quite visual, then it's definitely easier, like to, plug in like screenshots like Cow AI, where you can actually see like the software doing something. It's got that like wow visual factor. It's like in like a programmatic SEO software, it might be a bit harder to get that wow factor, but there's probably like ways you could find around it, even just letting AI do its thing and think about like different ideas and angles.
Yeah. Okay, sweet. So we have our first folder, which is add inspiration, saying, hey, AI, I like these ones. We have the other one that gives it the reference images of the products that it's actually going to use in the ads that it's going to make for us. Those go to another Google Drive here. What are those doing?
Yeah. So this one is literally it. So the first one was like find the files, and this one is basically just pull them into the images. So you kind of have to break that into two steps, at least from what I've seen. Maybe there is a way to do it in one, but from what I saw, kind of have to break it. So like in the first step, which you can see here, it's like just finding the files. And then in this step, it's actually pulling it. So here's like our ad inspiration. So you can see it like pulls all the ads I've like wanted here for inspiration. And you can add whichever ones you want. Like, you can add similar ones to your brand, very different ones, whatever vibe you're feeling. And you can also add as many as you want. I've just got 6 here, but you could add 10, 20, probably up to 100.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, then this one, the bottom parts, exact same thing. It's just pulling our product images. So we've just got like 2 different product images here. I think there should be like one with the guy wearing it, and then just like one standalone product image.
Okay, sweet. And then we're sending those to OpenAI now.
Yeah. So then it takes pretty much like for the product images, it breaks it down. And so it's like, analyze this product image in details if you're building a creative brief for an advertising team. And then the rest of the prompt is basically just like looking at sort of examples of what it could be breaking down, like how to like analyzing who's using the product, the emotional side of the product. It's basically just an in-depth prompt. I just used ChatGPT to generate this prompt and I plugged it in here. And so this one's just going to give you like a full breakdown of all the details about the product. And essentially this one's going to do the exact same. Describe the visual style of this image, what stands out if you have an holistic overview as a professional Facebook ads designer. How do you explain this image or images to be able to reproduce the elements that make it work for other ads? So this one is just analyzing the images and creating like a sort of holistic overview. Whereas instead of like looking at exactly what is in the image, like, oh, this product, or it's got a hand in it, it's saying like, oh, here's the template of the image, and basically creating a template of the ads that you'll be able to reproduce. And then the rest of the flow is going to merge those sort of 2 pieces together. So you have like the product description, like a very like in-depth overview of the product, and then a sort of broad overview of the ads, but looking at what makes the advertising work. And then so before, for anyone who had seen that tweet, what was happening was I was actually running these. And I was running everything through here, and then it would sort of loop in like one flow back to this one, and then it would get sent straight into the AI without this merge or aggregate thing. So if you have that flow and you've just got like one reference image or one product image, that actually works perfectly fine. However, what happened was, and I'm not entirely sure how this works, is I was running, as you can see, like 2 product images with 6 reference ads, and doing that, everything sort of got jumbled and multiplied. And then you were just having a ton of data getting sent into the AI, which was sort of breaking it because it would come out as like 12 variations as opposed to 8.
Mm-hmm.
So what this merge does is it basically takes the data from the previous steps. So like from the AI steps, it merges like the output of the reference, and it merges the output of the images, and then it breaks it down into like a table. And then this aggregate step just takes a table and it puts it into like one flow. So if you look here, you can see it says 6 items travel through here. So it's taken each image as its own item and then done that individually. Same with this product image. So what we want to do is we just want to get it to be like one sort of output that we're going to feed into the rest.
Got it. And then
So it sounds quite complicated. I was also a bit like confused too, but if you give it a try, it makes sense like fairly easily, like fairly quickly once you're playing around with it.
Yeah, totally. And I'm not an expert in N8N. I'm not an automation expert at all. I've mainly used Make. And I know there's a lot of stuff like this where it's, okay, you want to like parse that data or you want to merge it. And it's, can I like totally explain like why? No, but like you just do it and like you just learn to do it, right? So
exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that.
Like, to be honest, I mean, I don't even know if any of this flow has any of like the best practices in it, but it got to the output I was looking for. So for me, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay, sweet. So we're going to merge it, we're going to aggregate it, and then we're sending it to OpenAI here. What is this
so now,
a different OpenAI than the last ones, right?
Well, essentially this one, if you look here, so this one is an image analysis. So this is analyzing the image. This is also analyzing the image. This one is message model. So basically what that means is just like a standard prompt, like a standard text prompt. And so here it's taken all the data. So now we've sort of merged the data. We've got the reference ads, we've got our product image, we've put them together. And in this one, it's saying like, you're an expert in visual analysis and creative strategy for high converting DTC ads. And the input hasn't necessarily loaded here, but what you can do is you can drag from your previous nodes. It loads all the data before. And so what you do is essentially you pull the output from this aggregate, which comes across as this little JSON thing. It also looks complicated here, but what you'll see is it comes here as a little JSON file. Yeah, here you can see it. So in the aggregate node, we can see it's given us the content. So this is all the content in the aggregate node. And you literally can just drag and drop that into your prompt and then reference all that content. So you say like, hey, you're in a visual analysis and creative strategy for high converting DTC ads, the product. And then what we did over here was we went to the OpenAI that generated our product output. So that I believe was OpenAI 1. And we plugged that in there. And then we also gave it the content from this aggregation. So we dragged that content. And then I also just gave it a few other references. This isn't actually necessary. I was just testing this to see if I'll get better output, but you don't need to add those in there. And then you just give it the rest of the prompt. Your task is to compile like structured data sheet, analyzing all the data. This will be used as the foundation for creating image ads. Make sure to create a clear description of the product to explain all the info and give a clear analysis of what it is, i.e. product, what is in the details. So that was more like a specific output I wanted because we're going to like parse all this data and create 10 different prompts.
Yep. So up to here, we're essentially, all of this is like the upfront work to build the prompt, right? So if a human was doing this, we would give them all the images and say like, hey, human, these are all the ones that we like. Here's actual images of like our product. Can you come up with a bunch of prompts that we're going to feed to AI to actually build these images using
exactly
the ChatGPT or OpenAI image model?
Exactly. So like we could kind of break this thing down into like 3 pieces. So like I would put a division line somewhere over here. And as you said, everything here was just analysis. We were like analyzing everything, looking at the product, the images, the product's images, the ads. And then we were just merging that, like all the data and pretty much compiling it on one sheet. So as you said, if it was a human doing it, they're just analyzing all the ads, they're analyzing our product, and then they're like sitting down with the pen and paper and writing everything down into one sheet. And so now we've taken that data, like all the data we have on our products and our images, and we're going to plug it into OpenAI here. And now we're actually starting, like I would say this little process here is the visual, like the ad creation or the prompt creation for the ads. So what we do here is this one is kind of like our visual analyzer and creative strategist, I would say. And it's, looking at everything from more of that view. Like, okay, now you've got all the data. And like, as a creative strategist, how would you look at all this data to create ads? And then we're just, referencing some of our previous content within the flow. So you can even just pull the aggregate content. And so once that runs, it should give us also just another long prompt, but the output is going to be, like, as I said, more of like a visual analysis and creative strategy as opposed to just the raw data of what it's seen. So we can let that one run, and then it goes into the AI agents. And so the AI agents is more so of like the brain. And what you do is you can create your AI agents in the same way, and you just connect this OpenAI chat model so your agent knows which LLM to use. One thing I would also test is actually Claude, because Claude, I've played around with Claude a bit, and I think Claude for copywriting and sort of visual analysis and description is very good. I'd say ChatGPT is very good with like data, but I've noticed like even for copywriting and stuff, Claude's is pretty solid. So I haven't connected like my API into here, hence why I've just used OpenAI, but it would be worth testing Claude and seeing the output with that too.
Yeah, I agree. I think OpenAI has actually gotten a lot better within the last month. Like it's actually readable and doesn't sound like AI anymore as much.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of M dashes and things that it does. Claude 100% has been the best. 3.7, their newest model, is like a little iffy sometimes. Like it overdoes it in some instances. But yeah, I mean, with all of this stuff, like OpenAI is getting better. Claude's getting better by the day, but Claude's probably still the winner in copywriting right now.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, sometimes, as you said, it can overdo it. Although like sometimes the AI, sometimes ChatGPT is a bit more noticeable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think like those M dashes are definitely like the biggest giveaway.
they are. They're brutal.
So just going back to the previous one, like if we look at the sort of output it's given us, so it's just like a long prompt. So you can see product description. It's showing us what the product is, Shapewear tank, like what category it's in. And then it's just given us, a whole bunch of information about the product, some visual cues. Yeah, sort of just everything we would really need, like to be able to create like sort of a visual. And then here we've got like all the visual presentation, color lighting, everything we would really need to be able to go and generate the prompt. So here's our AI prompt agent now. And here's a little trick that I only learned recently is this little pin thing, like pins data. Because I was like rerunning this whole thing every time, which obviously gets expensive depending how big your flow is, because you have to use your API key like every time. So if you just pin the data, then every step afterwards is reference that pin data. So you can like focus your tests on different things. So now we go into the AI prompt agent. It's actually just called AI agent, but you can rename it. So I think I renamed it to AI prompt agent. But if AI prompt agent doesn't come up, it's just the AI agent node. Yeah. So now it says like you've been given a detailed visual like data sheet containing insights from our product images and reference ad templates. All the data you will use from the ads in terms of product references will be found here. And so I spoke about like pulling content across. So you do the same thing from your previous OpenAI node. You just grab that content thing and you pull it across. And then the rest of this prompt, I also just made this one on ChatGPT, whereas like just things that could include examples. And then at the end, I believe we did it. I don't know how necessary it is. I think actually I may have removed it here because it gets it pretty much by itself. Yeah, over here. Create the output in a JSON array. Sometimes you might have an issue with that, and I'm going to explain why you add this in a second. It's sometimes better just to like explain that you want it in a JSON array. And so you then connect this structured output parser in the output section. And that's why, because all the data is going to come here into a JSON array. And so if we actually run this, you will see that it's now going to generate 10 prompts from that previous node. And it's going to, this just tells the AI prompt agent how you want to structure the data, which is in a JSON format. So here there's like examples and it generates these automatically. You don't actually have to go add anything in here, but it gives you an example of how it should be generating and structuring the data.
Yeah. So once that's out, it's going to send it to a split out. So what does a split out do? Can you explain that, or is it just something we use?
Yeah, it's literally, I was like, I was sending all this data in here and it wasn't working. And I just pulled up this Ask Assistant and I was like, yo, what do I do here? And it said, oh, try using a split out node. So whatever this actually does, I mean, what it does is it literally just splits out the data into 10 different pieces.
Okay.
Why we do it, I don't know, but it's just, it's just what we do. So you can see here, like if we look in this structured data, that you can see, I think it actually, I don't know if those are the best responses or if that's what came out there, but let me check in the agents. Yeah, so it's generated 10 prompts. I think these prompts are actually not very good though. So I don't know if there was something I changed. I was messing around with this a lot last night, which probably wasn't ideal to do before. But generally, as you can see in that video, it pulls really good like prompts across. And so if we run it in the split out, what the split out actually does is, yeah, so it breaks it down into the 10 individual prompts.
Yeah. And someone probably, they're doing this for their business. They want to build those prompts out themselves, right? Like it's super easy to use ChatGPT. And what I would do is I would go and say, hey, I want a prompt to do this. This is what I'm thinking. Use it as an assistant, and then it'll help you with the prompt there. But yeah, you'll want to use like your own prompts here, depending on what, your business is.
Yeah, exactly. So here you can like, if you're always going to use this for your business, I'm just going to plug this in and like give it another run to see if the output's a bit better. If you're always using this for like, if you're always going to be using this for a specific software, like I'm always going to be using this for my brand. So in that case, I can even make these prompts more specific to my brand, which would obviously help the output. And I can give it more context on the brand. This one, like, for the sake of the demo, I try to keep it more generalized just by analyzing the data and trying to like figure itself out. But it would definitely like, if you have a brand sheet and you're saying like, okay, like here's sort of previous ads from our brand and you use those as references, or you have a brand sheet that you can plug in here and say like, analyze our brand sheet to be able to get the tone of how we speak to our customers, products we offer, who our customers are, then you're also going to have like way higher quality data. But for the sake of this example, also for the tweet, I wanted to try and make a more generalized plug and play one. Although if you do have brand data, I would highly recommend like plugging that in
Yeah, because you could say you, AI, are the chief marketing officer of this brand or this company, right? Like your job is to do X, Y, Z. Our color scheme is this. Our target audience is this. Like always think about, this when you're making things.
100%.
Did that just break it?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty
Yeah,
much.
that's okay.
But yeah, basically this is the one step where like I would recommend playing around with it a bit more, because if this is your output, then obviously these should be like more in-depth prompts. Like what we can try to do is actually, I'm just going to copy and paste that and say like create an in-depth prompt for the ads using all of our brand data. And I'm just going to pull like the aggregate one here across, and we can give that another test. And while this runs, I'm just going to like sort of break down the rest of the flow, and then we'll come back and check that data. So yeah, essentially what the split out does is it takes those 10 structured pieces and it splits them out into like 10 different prompts. So that would sort of end the second segment. And so yeah, this segment is like the design section where it's actually designing those 10 prompts. Also, it doesn't have to be 10. You can make as many as you want. You can get it to make 2, you can get it to make 20, you can get it to make 100. It's just obviously going to take time to generate. But literally, once you turn this on, you can go for a run, you can go make some coffee, you can go, watch TV, you can do whatever you want, and it's going to work for you while you're doing that. So how it works is it then runs into like this loop section, which we can just, whatever data is here, we'll just pull this. Oh, there we go. So now we've got way better prompts that have actually been broken down. So if you look broken down like all the prompts here, and once we run it through this loop section, I just put this wait node. I don't know if that's necessary. It's just a timer, so we don't like spam out on the HTTP request. And then this HTTP request is what actually accesses ChatGPT's image generation. So there's like a whole bunch of videos on YouTube. Like I won't necessarily get into how to access the API stuff here, but there's a bunch of videos on YouTube. It's fairly easy. You just go to like their API and you create your own API key and you can plug it in here, and then it sort of understands it needs to do the image generation. So if we run this node, I'm just gonna need to be careful when I open this up because that's how I leave my API key in the video. But yeah, luckily it's blocked off at the bottom there. So yeah, when you run this, you can see like you choose your method and the URL is connected to api.openai.com. So if you go there, this is the link you go to get your image generation. And then there's a few like header parameters and stuff you need to change. But once again, like there's a whole bunch of videos on YouTube. You can literally just search like how to connect ChatGPT image generation to N8N through like HTTP request. And there's really good videos explaining this process and data. And so once you run through this, it generates the image, but it gives you the image in a weird form. Once again, just like a tech thing I don't fully understand, but it generates the image in a whole bunch of arrays, which once it's done loading, yeah. So you can't actually see the data here. And it's because you need to go to this next node, which is convert to file. So if we convert to file and we test this step, yeah, so the image is done in this weird form, which is like just computer form. It's an image just wrapped up in a bunch of text. And then you use this convert to file node and you do move base 64. So that's the format that it generates the image in to a file. And so it will now generate that first image into a convertible file or into a visual file we can see.
Nice. And then once you have this just lets you scale infinitely, right? If you're running Facebook ads, it's all about testing, right? But like going in and even for my newsletter, I run a lot of Facebook ads. I tend to use, I'm definitely not as experimenting as much as I should. Like I find a winning ad and I just run with it. But who knows if I made a couple tweaks to that, if it would actually do better. But like the time it takes to go create the ad, think of new copy, upload that, like do everything. I'm just lazy about it. So I could definitely see how this is, actually I just click go. It shows up in my file and I just take 10 minutes to upload these. And now I have a brand new test on all of these new images.
Exactly. Making the ads is super time consuming. Even just going into ChatGPT, it is fairly time consuming, even though you can create a prompt and get like ChatGPT to create a visual for you, and sometimes their ads are super good. Like we've had ads scale in our ad account that we made on ChatGPT, but sitting there and iterating and waiting for it to load. And, if you're there doing it all the time, it's probably a lot faster. But personally, like I generate one image, I'm watching it load, I get distracted, I pull up Twitter on my phone and then I end up scrolling for 10 minutes instead of testing the next variation.
Yeah.
So this way you can do that exact process, but it's all going to be automated. It's like if we look at the output here, okay, so it didn't make the best one. It didn't actually pull our product across.
It did,
So
but like that actual ad is pretty good, right? Like
the ad itself is great. It just hasn't pulled our product data across.
yeah, totally. But a year ago, you'd have to pay someone like a graphic designer to sit there and make this.
Yeah, 100%. What I would do now is I would just go back and I'll take one of these and I would pull the exact product data into the section.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that way it would probably make the thing more accurate. But in terms of the actual ad, with the product was for like weight or like shapewear vests, like weight loss vests. So ignoring the woman here with the actual copy of lose weight is a simple trick. Shop now, those like the quality of this output and how it's actually designed as an ad. It's got the CTA in the ad. The colors are going to stand out to someone on Facebook, like scrolling through Facebook or Instagram. You've got like reviews in the top. And so essentially, if you were just to go back to the AI agent prompt and just give it a bit more of an in-depth here and then pull the product data in, you would have really good output here.
What a crazy world we live in. You could just wake up in the morning and have 100 fresh new ads waiting in your Google account just to start
100%.
testing.
You just hit like test workflow and you sort of run this whole thing from the beginning. How this last section works is it's going to create the ad, convert it to file. You just set up a Google Drive. So like I have image output. It's just a file somewhere in my Google Drive, wherever you want to put it. And you just copy the file into here. And literally now, while it's running, we've already tested that the whole thing works. Ideally, you would just want to change up this prompt a bit, but the flow itself actually works. So you just want to change this to get to better image quality and the product output. But right now, like I could go do whatever I want to do, and I could come back in about 5 minutes, or I could even carry on working with this in the background. And I'm going to have 10 very solid Facebook ads just in my drive, which I could then just go put into my ad library, my ad account.
Yeah. Man, there's so many use cases for this too, right? If you're running a social media marketing agency or just like an ad agency just in general, like you don't need employees anymore. You can just set this up and you're delivering like social media posts to your clients multiple times a day and just saying, hey, which one do you like? Okay, we'll post it. There's so many use cases for this.
100%. There's so many use cases. I had a friend who used a very similar flow and he did one for YouTube Shorts. And it was quite crazy because he was just like also messing around with YouTube Shorts. And it was something similar where it generates the image. It used like Kling, which is the AIs for sort of animating videos. And it's really good at animating videos. And he would just connect it to a YouTube channel to like pull the transcriptions. And he posted that. He posted like 3 videos. And the first video that the AI thing posted, like it was a flow like this, but instead of adding to Google Drive, the final node was posted to YouTube. His first video got 88,000 views on a brand new account.
Crazy. It's crazy.
So
you clicked the button in an automation.
Literally. And I think that was like one of the biggest things, especially in the beginning. But that myth has seemingly been disregarded where everyone would say like you can go and you can generate videos or you can generate images, but will they actually convert? Will it resonate with an audience? And like now, maybe like when it first started, it was actually like, no, like it's a cool idea, but it just doesn't work. But now that's like being debunked. Like now it's like blatantly obvious that you can go create these videos with AI or these images with AI and run it on YouTube, run it on Facebook, post it somewhere, create content with it, like written content, and it will resonate with an audience and actually be good enough to the point where algorithms will push it. YouTube will push your short, Facebook will push your ad, Google will push your SEO content.
Yeah. And if you're running literally any business, the more surface area you can have, the better. So if you can post one short per day right now and it's like super high quality, that's great. And you should be doing that. But like, what if you could do 10 times that with the same amount of work? Like, who wouldn't want to do that? I have an automation set up for an Instagram account I'm running right now. It's still like in the early phases, but it's just quote reels, right? So it's all based on sales. And it's, here's a quote from Tony Robbins. Here's one from Jordan Belfort. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't want to go into Canva every day and type that out, download it, go to Instagram, upload it. So I built an automation that I'd literally go into a Google Drive folder. I click check on the next quote. It sends it out to Make. It makes it through all the JSON stuff, and then it posts it to Instagram. So literally for me going into a Google Doc, I press check, and then 5 minutes later, it's up on Instagram. It's a
It's
crazy
crazy.
world. It's a crazy world we live in. Sweet. Do you want to wait till
I
we
think,
see what the export here is?
yeah,
Okay.
essentially what I would do is I would just literally go and I would drag the output from like our product description and plug it in there, and I'll test that. And that should work. That's what's pretty much in the original one I posted on Twitter. Like you said, this loop is just going to run now, and it's going to keep posting ads into our ad library. And like I can go, do whatever I want and just get these sort of ads like coming in. Once again, products off. But in terms of the actual ad format itself, like CTA, reviews, benefits, strong headline, like just potent headline, the outputs, like the templates are really good.
And then you could build another automation if you want to just send these directly to Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, right?
Yeah.
You'd build that right away so that as soon as this is done executing, it takes that and sends it right there. So then you really have no excuse to not be posting all the time.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the things is if you want to make these automations, it's better to start off small. I mean, even this isn't necessarily small, but like you said, you can even then go and create a separate automation where you're going to upload it to Facebook ads. And it's not particularly hard to do that. I mean, you can do that through the HTTP request. The hardest part is probably going to be able to like figuring out where the Facebook ads API is. But the rest of that is really easy to automate.
Yeah.
And then you've literally got that whole process from start to finish.
Yeah. And then it's basically a SaaS, and you can start reselling it to other people, build it into like a real SaaS if it like takes off. I think that's another interesting way to think about automations is like you can essentially build these mini SaaS tools and like test if they'll work. And if you can get customers, it's like, hey, if this works as an N8N automation, it's probably going to work if I build this fully out on Replit or Cursor and start going to get customers.
100%.
This was awesome. You're a legend. Where can people find you?
Just on Twitter, it's Pablo_Rothbard. I've just share most of like raw thoughts on Twitter and stuff I'm doing.
What are you most excited about right now?
Right now, I'm pretty excited to like sort of see how, I don't think you should automate everything. Definitely not. Like you need to have some sort of human touch to it, or at least in terms of like high level stuff. These things that just don't need to be automated. You should probably be seeing them. But I'm excited to like sort of see how much, at least in the phase, like I would look at it as there's sort of that phase where you can run your business and things are just there, like to make sure everything's running smoothly. And then there's other things you can do to scale it. And I think before you would often need a lot of people to do that running phase of like, oh, you need someone who's going to work with your affiliates. You need someone who's going to do the customer support and just to have that baseline of your business being a functional business. Whereas now a lot of those things can literally be automated. And I'm quite excited to see like how much it can be done and how efficient it can be and how much that all costs. Like how much would that team cost versus how much does it cost if you automate it?
Yeah, there's always a question now,
Yeah.
okay, I need to hire someone to do this. And it's like, how much of their job could I actually automate with AI? And even if I spend, look, it sounds expensive to pay like $200 for operator or whatnot, or some of these tools, but it's like, wait, you're going to tell me I can spend $250 for all these softwares and put them together and they do exactly what like someone I'd have to pay like $2,500 a month for?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible.
100%. And I think like one of the best things is it opens you up to, especially if you're like building out a whole bunch of different things, like if you've got that sort of holding company set up where you've got multiple brands or multiple softwares, it gives you the room to also work with way better talent because you can now put that budget into hiring A players. Whereas before, maybe you were putting your budget into like VAs or customer support or just someone doing like more menial tasks. Now you can automate that and actually say, oh, like we've got all this free budget, which we don't necessarily need to spend for advertising. We can like hire someone who's like exceptional and is actually going to scale our business more. So instead, like you said it earlier, like you don't need to have these big teams. You can just have like one really good person who gets paid well working with AI underneath them.
Yeah, bunch of AI agent workers. It's fun.
Yeah.
Sweet, man. I appreciate you coming on here. Go check
Likewise.
out Pablo on X. And yeah, I'm excited to see more of what you built. Thanks for coming on.
I appreciate it.